Good morning, guys. We are the Group 7 and 8, and we are here to discuss the different elements of visual arts. So, I would like to define first what is the meaning of visual. So, when we say visual, these are the things that we can feel, we can touch, or we can see. In short, these are the things that are visible in our naked eye. So, what are the elements of art? So, when we say elements of art, these are the components or parts of a work that can be isolated and defined. These are the building blocks used to create a work of art. So, when we say elements of art, kumbaga, para siyang isang building. Sila ang pinaka-foundation ng building na yon. Without them, we cannot create a masterpiece. So, we have 7 elements of the art. So, for the first element, we have.
So, what is line? Line is a mark on surface that describes shape or an outline. So, dito sa line, hindi lang straight line yung ginagamit natin. Meron din tayong ginagamit na curve, diagonal, zigzag, dash or dot, perpendicular, outline, wavy, and parallel. So, it means malaking tulong ito kapag pinagsama-sama natin. So, may possible na makabuo tayo ng texture or shape na pwede natin be considered as an art. And it also, line it can be used to create a various composition and used to be continuous. So, yung line daw is you can create a various composition. So, meaning, gamit yung mga iba't ibang uri ng type of line, pwede kang makabuo ng isang art or mga pattern na considered natin as an art.
Types of lines, we have 4. The first one is vertical line. Vertical lines communicate a sense of height because they are perpendicular to the earth, extending upwards toward the sky, and it expresses an impression of dignity. Perfect example for this are buildings and statues. Just like the Statue of New York, when you say vertical lines, ito yung mga patayong linya. The second one is horizontal line. A horizontal line is a straight line that goes from right to left or left to right. It such as a feeling of rest and repose because objects parallel to the earth are at rest. And only horizontal lines can give a feeling of peacefulness and stillness. And perfect example for these are landscapes. The third one is diagonal line. Diagonal line, it is a straight line that is slanting in any direction apart from horizontal and vertical direction. It gives an impression or it gives a feeling of movement or action. And perfect example for this are sea waves and yung mga roof natin na paslant na ganito. And the last one is curve line. A curve line is referred as S-curve. And these are lines that bend or change direction gradually, and they can be simply wavy or spiral. And it gives an impression of gracefulness and sexiness. And perfect example for this are our body. Lalo-lalo na yung mga Coca-Cola shape na katawan and yung roller coaster.
So, lines in photography. So, we have what we call leading lines. So, paano bang ginagamit ang leading lines? Ginagamit ito kapag may subject tayo na gusto natin i-direct to the point. So, gagamit tayo ng parang line na mag-a-attract sa viewer natin para makita agad yung subject natin sa isang photograph. So, magkakaroon tayo ng kaunting activity. Titignan natin if paano nga ba ginagamit ng isang photographer ang leading line. So, let us remember what are the types of line. These are curved line, diagonal line, vertical, and horizontal line. So, let's start. So, for the first picture, we have a tree. So, I'll give you 5 seconds to guess or to know if ano bang leading line ang ginamit dyan. So, tama, no? The answer is vertical. So, by the tree itself, it is a vertical line. So, yon. So, for the next picture, we have a sea landscape. So, another 5 seconds starts now. So, tama, no? Horizontal line yung ginamit dyan by the sea itself. So, yon. So, for the next picture, we have a bridge. So, ano kayang line, leading line ang ginamit dyan? So, you've got the correct answer. The correct answer is curved line. So, halata naman sa picture why we used the curved line. Ito, for the last picture, it is a train. I think it's in full speed. So, ano kayang ginamit na leading lines dyan para makita natin agad yung subject? So, 5 seconds. So, yon, no? Tama. Diagonal line ang ginamit natin para makita natin ang subject. So, that is how you use leading lines in a photograph.
Three main types of lines. Repetition. It occurs when two or more lines are drawn within a corner following the lines of the corner. Contrast. It is when lines are opponent to each other. Transition line. It connects two workflow elements.
So moving on to the colors, it is an element of art that is produced when light striking an object is reflected back to the eye. It can be divided into classification, but the basics are primary, secondary, and tertiary. So familiar naman siguro tayo kung ano ang primary colors and secondary colors. So pag sinabi natin primary colors, ito yung blue, yellow, and red. Secondary colors are orange, green, and violet. Next, moving on to the color wheel. Pag sinabi natin color wheel, siguro naman familiar tayo pag sinabing color wheel, di ba? Kasi since elementary naman siguro pinapag-aralan natin kung ano ang color wheel. So when we say color wheel, it is an abstract illustrative organization of color used around a circle that shows relationships between primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. Moving on to the attributes of color. Hue. This is when we refer to a color by its name. Next, value refers to the lightness or darkness of a color. Under value, we have tints and shades. Tints are above the normal and shades are below the normal. Sorry for that. Intensity refers to the brightness or darkness of a color.
Psychology of color. We often associate color with psychological and emotional connotations. These are some examples of it. Black is associated with death and gloom, and white stands for purity and innocent. Red is associated with blood, anger, and fear. Green implies happiness and abundance.
Texture is the surface characteristic and appearance of an object, given by the size, shape, density, arrangement, proportion of its elementary parts. It can be rough or smooth, fine or coarse, shiny or dull, plain or irregular. There are two types of texture: implied texture, which express the idea of how surface might feel, and actual texture might feel an actual texture that can actually felt.
Perspective is one of the elements of art, meaning it refers to the representation of three-dimensional objects or spaces in two-dimensional artworks. It is used to create a realistic impression of depth. Play with perspective to present a dramatic or disorientating images. It also deals with the effect of distance upon the appearance of objects, by means of which the eye judges spatial relationships. An example of perspective is a painting where the railroad tracks appear to be curving into the distance. There are two kinds of perspective, the linear and aerial. When we say linear perspective, this represents the distance by means of converging lines. It has to do with the direction of lines and with the size of objects. Painters usually show the effect of space and distance by using converging lines and diminishing size. So to achieve this effect, there are three essential components needed in creating a painting or drawing using linear perspective. First, the orthogonals, also known as parallel lines. Second, the vanishing point. And the last one is the horizon line. Parallel lines below the eye level seem to rise to a vanishing point in the horizon, while those above the eye level seem to descend to the vanishing point. The second kind is the aerial perspective, also called as atmospheric perspective. This represents the distance by gradations of tone or color. It also refers to how the atmosphere affects how we see things. It is also a method of creating the illusion of depth or recession in a painting or drawing by modulating color to simulate changes affected by the atmosphere on the colors of things seen at a distance. In this kind of perspective, the objects become fainter in the distance due to the effect of the atmosphere. Objects appear to be lighter in color as they recede into the distance or atmosphere.
Did you know that we call the representation of objects or parts of the body as smaller from the point of view of the observer as foreshortening? So to give you an example, come to think that you are riding an airplane. So pag nasa taas ka ng langit, nakikita mo na parang ang liit-liit ng mga bahay, ng mga bundok sa ilalim. But when you land, makikita mo na normal size na sila ulit. So it is according to your point of view. So we call that as foreshortening.
So what is space? Space is an element of art, refers to the distances or areas around, between, or within components of a piece. So we have two kinds of space, the positive space and the negative space. So the positive space refers to the areas in a work of art that are the subjects or areas of interest. While the second is the negative space, refers to the areas around the subjects or areas of interest. We must also remember that sometimes space isn't actually within a piece, but illusion of it is.
Forms. It describes the structure or shape of an object. It refers to three-dimensional objects. So thus, form is only applied to 3D objects such as sculpture and pottery. So we also have two types of form. The organic forms, these are irregular in outline and often thought of as naturally occurring, and geometric forms that are regular in outline such as square, rectangles, circles, and other regular forms.
Volume. Volume is the size, bulk, and dimension of a particular object. It refers to solidity or thickness, an element of art that is two-dimensional, flat, or limited to height and width. Volume includes height, width, and depth. Volume is defined as the space occupied within the boundaries of an object in three-dimensional space. It is also known as the capacity of the object. This space is measured in terms of its volume. Finding the volume of an object can help us to determine the amount required to fill that object, like the amount of water needed to fill a bottle, an aquarium, or a water tank.
To conclude with, so the elements of art are line, colors, texture, perspective, space, form, and volume. So by knowing this, we can develop and produce our artistic composition. So we do hope that you listen very well to our discussion, and we do hope that you learn a lot of lesson from us. So that's it for today. Thank you and God bless.